मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Om. We begin the study of the Bhajagovindam, a composition by the great Adi Shankara at the fag end of his life on the banks of the river Ganga at Varanasi. It was a composition of Jnana and Bhakti, and for students of Vedanta, both beginners and for advanced students, it is a wonderful revision. This is also called Moha Mudgara. Mudgara means a hammer. We have 8 women, both highly qualified and highly committed to give the message of Adi Shankara. All we need to do is be very receptive, be open, keep our delusions open, and they are going to hammer our delusions one by one. We begin with Rama. Rama, it is your time to the opening shloka of the Bhajagovinda.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. First of all, let me wish happy Mother's Day to everyone. Shankara, in his one of the compositions, says, Kuputro jayeta kvachidapi kumata na bhavati. That is, a bad mother never exists. That is what it means. And also he has composed Matru Panchakam to pay the respect to all the mothers. The verse goes, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Duknai Karane. The Padaparichaya is Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. He Mudhamate, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Duknai Karane. The basic purpose of human life is self-realization. This is the central idea of Bhajagovindam. Bhajagovindam is one of the smaller texts composed by Sri Adi Shankara when compared to the other commentaries on Prasthanatraya and all. This Prakarana Grantha provides the fundamentals of Vedanta in simple musical verses. Chakravarti C. Rajagopalachari in his introduction to Bhajagovindam says, when intelligence matures and lodges securely in the mind, it becomes wisdom. When wisdom is integrated in life, issues out in action, it becomes bhakti. Knowledge, when it becomes fully mature, is bhakti. Any knowledge which does not get transformed into bhakti is useless tinsel. To believe that bhakti and knowledge are different from each other is ignorance. Bhajagovindam is also referred as Moha Mudgaraha. The word Moha means delusion, Mudgara means hammer, Moha Mudgara means destroyer of delusion. Each verse gives a heavy blow to the excessive value we place on the worldly possessions. We need to hammer the delusions out ourselves. Coming to the verse, the meaning of the verse is, O deluded one, adore Govinda, seek Govinda. When the appointed time, that is death, comes, all the worldly knowledge like grammar will not save you. The opening verse is a chorus and repeated after each sloka. The word Bhaja Sevayam. Bhaja means Sevayam, which means worship, to serve or to know. Bhaja Sevayam is explained as Kayena in 3 ways. Kayena, Sevartha, use body as an instrument to do actions with Ishwararpana Buddhihi and Ishvara Prasada Bhavaha to get Chitta Shuddhi. Bhaja Kaya, Bhaja Vacha, Stutyartham, praising the Lord with devotion. Bhaja Manasa, Tattva Chintanam, through Mananam and Nididhyasanam, and learn to remain unaffected by the worldly affairs. This process of self-liquidation at the feet of the Lord is classified under 9 types in Narada Bhakti Sutra as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atma Nivedanam. The word Govinda has 2 words, Go and Vinda. Go has many meanings. Vinda is to know or to protect. Shankara Bhashya explains Govinda in 4 different ways. Go means earth, the protector of the universe. is in Varahavatara. One who has realized the substratum upon which the world play is going on. The second meaning is one who protects the cattle, the very essence behind all the living creatures. Third meaning is go means Vani, he who confers speech, or one who enlivens all sense organs, motor organs, and antahkaranam. Go means Vedaha, he who is known through the Vedas, the supreme reality indicated by the Mahavakyas, in short, the supreme Atman or Brahman. The fifth one is Saguna Brahma, also means in Vishnu Sahasranama, it is a Saguna Brahma. Go also means rays of light, he is Surya Narayana. Govinda is the name of both Kuladeva and Guru of Sri Shankara. The significance of repetition of Bhaja Govindam thrice is explained as Bhaja Govindam to represent seek a capable Guru. Bhaja Govindam seek the knowledge that aids in self-realization. Bhaja Govindam with this knowledge meditate and contemplate to seek all the pervading Govinda. Thus ways to go see Govinda is explained. Sir, 1.5 minutes, sorry, 2 more words are there. Samprapte sannihite kale. Why should we seek Govinda? The answer is kale means at the time of death. Govinda Tattva is Ashraya and security. Sannihite samprapte, getting closer to death, to become kalatitaha, that is to go beyond the cycle of life and death. Ukroit karani means to do. The knowledge of grammar or worldly knowledge known as aparavidya. Nahi nahi rakshati. Surely not, never, by no means they lead us to Brahman. Both apara and paravidya are complementary in the form of means and end. Aparavidya is the means, for the paravidya the end. We may start with doing, but have to end in being. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you, Rama Madam, for a nice explanation of the introductory verse. Dr. Sandhya, it is your time.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Am I audible, sir?
Be clear, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we now begin after the first verse, which is actually the prayer. We begin the rest of the 30 verses, and this actually gradually unveils the ignorance that covers the glory of man. The second verse goes like this. This is actually the first shloka. Muda jahihi dhanagamatrishnam kuru sadbuddhim manasi vitrishnam yallabase nija karmopatham vittam tena vinodaya chittam. The meaning is, O fool, give up the thirst to possess wealth. Be wise and content with whatever you have. Learn to be happy and satisfied with whatever you earn through your own effort. This verse deals with the delusion with regard to wealth. We are always entangled in samsara because we are constantly seeking happiness and fulfillment from external sources. Purification of mind, developing the inner equipoise alone will give us peace and happiness, and not just acquiring, hoarding, and enjoying. So Adi Shankara makes this hard-hitting statement. Muda jahihi dhanagama trishna kurusad buddhim manasivi trishna. So who is this fool, the Muda that he's talking about? It is one who suffers from his own ignorance. And Shankara is appealing to this ignorant fool to give up this thirst to possess wealth or dhanam. The dhanam here refers to all worldly objects of possession. So there are two extremes with respect to the perspectives on wealth. So growing up, I remember, those of you who were interested in pop music would know the famous ABBA song saying money, money, money on one hand, which extols the virtues of money, and the other of Pink Floyd, who says, money, so they say, is the root of all evil today. So what does Shastra say? Shastras are not against wealth. Wealth by itself is innocent. It does not say renounce wealth, but only says give up the insatiable thirst for wealth. That is the Trishna. We have to change our relationship with wealth. Instead of condemning it totally, we have to change our perspective. Kuru sadbuddhim. Create sadbuddhi. First, cleanse the mind of its desire for objects, greed for possessions, and coveting wealth. And apply the same mind to that which is eternal, enduring, and real. So Swami Param says, we have to learn something. We have to be clear. We have to develop this discrimination between the good and bad aspects of wealth, understand its purpose, the plus and minus points. And he says that everything in creation is a manifestation of the divine. That is Aishwaryam. We need knowledge, power, wealth. So first and foremost, we must learn to respect wealth. Then we have to understand its benefits and limitations, what it can and cannot give. Let's look at what it cannot give. Shastra is very clear. We see innumerable examples around us all the time that happiness does not come from the comforts that money can buy. It's only inner happiness that is important. Security, the more wealth we have, the more secure measures that we must put in place. Third, contentment. The thirst for wealth never stops. Unquenchable it is. Because as we see, you have more money, you invest more, you look for it. So there's an atripti cannot be quenched. So wealth can never get us happiness, security, and contentment. Swami Chinmaya says it's a game of endless sorrows because it brings in worries and fear of losing, anxiety, etc. Scriptures also talk a lot about this karya karana sambandham, that wealth and happiness. In Kathopanishad, Nachiketa says to Yama, Na vittena tarpaniyo manushyaha. Man is never satisfied with his possessions. In Viveka Chudamani, Adi Shankara says, Amritatvasya nashati vittenatyeva hi shrutihi. Immortality is not through wealth. Indeed, is the declaration of the scriptures. And in our favorite Ishavasya Upanishad, Tena Bunjita, renounce and enjoy is what it says. So what is the purpose of Dhanam according to the Shastras? In this verse, Shankara indicates how we must live in this world. And his advice is to live joyously in contentment and satisfaction. So Dhanam is Dharmika Karma Sadhanam. That means if one has to perform the noble prescribed karmas of Panchamahayajnas, we need Dhanam. And because this can be done only through a stable infrastructure of a family, and for maintaining this, you need Dhanam. So Dharma alone will lead to happiness, security, and contentment through the punyam that is gained. So here, just another few seconds, Shankaracharya says, Muda jahihi dhanagama trishna. Hey Muda, O confused person, dhanagama trishnam jahihi. Give up your greed for acquiring more and more wealth, expecting happiness, security, and contentment through it. Kuru sadbuddhim manasivi trishnam. May you develop the noble attitude of contentment. And what is this contentment? Yadvittam nija karmopatam. That wealth which is earned by your own dharmic effort. And with that wealth, labhase thena vinodaya chittam. And with that, as a reward, learn to entertain your mind. So to conclude, to discover a sense of contentment and live on what we acquire with our honest labor and not to feed our greed seems to be the only method by which true happiness and inner peace can be achieved. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya Ravi. A very nice explanation. The Bhaja Govindam is fairly simple, but the message is very painful and very direct. Dr. Sandhya Nanjundaya, it is your time for the next verse.
Hari Om. Nari sthanavara nabhidesham drishtva maga mohavesham etan mamsa vasadi vikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. Now, this verse requires a little bit of clarification on two counts. First of all, Adi Shankara talks about Nari, and we must remember that he is actually a Jivan Mukta, the Param Guru of all of us. And in his mind, there was absolutely no differentiation between the genders, and he did never disrespected women at all. Why he makes the point about the Nari, if you look at the meaning, is that he is trying to hit home a very hard point, and that is that the two main problems that we have to overcome are Kama and Kanchana. Kanchana already Sandhya spoke about. Here he is talking about Kama as a major obstacle to spiritual progress. Now, there are two types of Kamas that we face. First of all is the acquired Kama, that is wealth, prosperity, and so on, which really requires more effort, time, and so on. But we have basic karmas which are there if anyone is a human being, and there are 4 of them: food, sleep, self-protection, and procreation. And what happens is these 4 of them are very easily fulfilled, and because they are so intrinsic to the human being that they tend to drag the senses away from the true path of salvation, and the mind keeps on going for more and more gratification in this way. So what he is talking about is food and sleep are required just to maintain the body, but the procreative instinct is something that perhaps we should control to the best of our ability. Now, let us remember that for a sannyasi and for a brahmachari, complete celibacy is advocated by the Shastras. As far as the grihastha is concerned, limited indulgence is all right, especially if it is in a dharmic way, and especially for the production of children to future the family and the species. But we must remember this is one instinct that we have to completely control if it is really possible, and try to conserve all our energies to increase our spiritual progress. Now, if you look at the meaning of the next sentence, the second sentence, it says that when you look at a woman, do not be deluded by her immediate physical form. Remember that she is also a person made of body, flesh, and so on. Now, what Shankaracharya here is trying to say is that there are various ways for us to reduce karma. The first one is an intellectual type of understanding that this is not good for me. That is called sama. The second one is called dhamma. Dhamma means when you see a beautiful woman, don't keep on staring at her. Don't go into situations or circumstances where the mind is excited by this type of procreative tendencies, so that the mind does not keep on dwelling on this subject for a very long time. And the third type of advice that he gives is one thing called Pratipaksha Bhashana. And this way is by looking at the negative side of a woman. That is, her body, though very attractive, is made of flesh, blood, subject to decay and disease, and is like any other body itself. So there is really not very much in her body that is attractive to my senses, and therefore I need not particularly dwell on her physical form. Not only physical, mental dwelling also should not be there, and we should not keep on cogitating over this type of thinking in our mind so as to control the kama desire completely. Now let us remember that though he talks about kama as far as the procreative tendency is concerned, this rule applies to almost all the desires, both acquired and basic. So we should minimalize this type of circumstance so that we attribute more of our spiritual energy to spiritual progress. Now, there is another way that Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda used to use, and that is to look at all women as embodiments of either mother or sister. And for both these type of relationships, sort of attraction. So this is one way to look at all women in our life. And also, if of course if the woman is the devotee, then to look at all men as either fathers or brothers, and therefore try to maintain this type of relationship. Now, we require viveka, we require vairagya, and most of it a very strong, determined will. And this does not come easy at all, because it is such a deep desire that he talks of varam, varam, that is again and again, repeated understanding and practice is the only way that we are going to accompany this. So let us go and from Vishayananda to Atmananda and have the full blessings in our life. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya. Another very clear explanation of an important verse. Jyoti, it is your time.
Hari Om. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tadvad jeevitam atishaya chapalam vidhi vyadhyabhimanagrastam lokam shokahatam cha samastam. In this shloka, Sri Shankaracharya points out that we have very limited time in this life to accomplish our primary goal, which is Govinda or moksha. He gives an excellent example here to illustrate the unsteadiness of life. He presents the urgency to pursue Vedanta to attain moksha through Pratipaksha Bhavana. Dr. Sandhya also made a reference to this in the previous shloka. Paksha means standpoint. Pratipaksha means an opposite standpoint or opposite point of view. In this, whenever a given point of view disturbs your mind, you replace it with the opposite point of view and thus calm the mind. For example, you get agitated or excited when you're angry. If you replace that anger by kindness or compassion for the person causing it, your anger will get diffused. Nalini Dalagata Jalam is a drop of water resting on a lotus leaf. Ati Taralam, how unsteady it is. Tadvat Jeevitam Atishaya Chapalam. Jeevitam means life, Chapalam is unsteady. Atishaya Chapalam means extremely unsteady. Life is as unsteady and unpredictable as the droplet of water which rests on a lotus leaf. It is so unsteady that even the slightest breeze will cause it to slide off. Another corollary derived in the shloka is that we need to be unattached to Jeevitam like the drop of water remains unattached to the leaf. Bhajagovindam awakens us to the truth that as human beings, we are meant to experience a hassle-free life, one of full cheer and joy. Therefore, it's unwise to postpone spirituality. When you are reasonably available, take up spirituality. We procrastinate that which is unpleasant or difficult. Sri Shankaracharya says, be aware of this and start utilizing your time properly. The time to start studying Vedanta and implementing it in our lives is now. Vedanta talks about our life and tells us how to be happy. Bhartrhari illustrates this as follows. The maximum allotted lifespan to a person is about 100 years. Half of it is gone in sleep. Another 25 years is gone because one is too young or too old to pursue spirituality. In the remaining 25 years, one has other distractions and obligations, work, study, sickness, and other responsibilities. A majority of the lifespan is spent in pursuit of artha and kama purusharthas. When will one seek spirituality? The second line of the shloka says, Vidhi Vyadyabhimana Grastam Lokam Shoka Hatam Cha Samastam. Vidhi means may you further understand. Vyadyabhimana Grastam Lokam means this whole world is grasped by the jaws of Vyadi or disease and Abhimanam or pride. The world is shokahatam, afflicted by sorrows. There is disease at the physical level, sorrow at the emotional plane, and arrogance at the intellectual stage, all of which create agitations. The body is never completely healthy, though it may be healthy for a period of time. At the level of the mind, there is abhimanam or arrogance. We are accustomed to them and are unable to visualize a life free from these. When the conditions are reasonably good, grab it and bhaja Govinda. Focus on Govinda. Everything that we have is a temporary gift from the Lord. Anything can be taken away at any time with or without notice. We do not own anything. We are only allowed to use them in life. We must use these appropriately to accomplish our spiritual goal. If we have successfully done that, when the time comes to return them, we will do so with gratitude. A person who remembers this constantly is a Viveki. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Shloka 9, Lord Krishna says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukhadoshanu Darshana. He asks us to reflect constantly upon the fact that there is pain of different kinds in life. In Janma or birth, Mrityu or death, Jara, old age, and in Vyadhi, disease. Sri Shankara reiterates this here, saying, remember that there is only pain all along, and therefore utilize whatever opportunity you have for a worthwhile cause. This doesn't mean that we should take the approach that we might die any moment and panic. The point is that we must utilize our time judiciously. We seem to think that the study of scriptures is for retirees, but the truth couldn't be farther from that. In his teaching, Sri Shankara always reiterates the importance of setting priorities in our life and utilizing our time properly. Every one of us must set aside time for a little spiritual study every day. Think about it and strive to put it into practice. Thank you.
Okay, very nice and a clear presentation. Dr. Vasumati, it is your time.
Yeah, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yavat Vittoparjana Saktaha, Tavat Nija Parivaro Saktaha. Paschat Jivati Jarjara Dehe, Varta Kopina Pruchati Gehe. The Tatparya is, so long as a man is fit and able to support his family, see what affection all those around him show. But No one at home comes to even have a word with him when his body totters due to old age. Adi Shankara in this verse speaks about the transitory nature of wealth, name, and fame. We command respect in our corresponding circles of influence as long as we are of use to those around. When our utility factor wanes, so does the respect we command. Many of us acquire great wealth, name, fame, reputation, and respect. We become CEOs, superlative athletes, great singers, and seem to know all the right people. But when the titles are taken away from us and the process of time diminishes our abilities, fewer people seem to remember us anymore. But that is what the nature of the world is, isn't it so? One moment you will be hailed as a great leader of men and put on a pedestal, decorated, and in the very same breath, people will make you the villain of the piece. We keep seeing this happen all around. One should not tend to think that this will only happen to others and not me. Instead, one must question if this can happen to them, it can very much become my own reality too. And be in this awareness of impermanence and futility of all worldly things and worldly relationships, and thus anchor ourselves in the truth of Brahman. When we seek permanence and immortality, we do not expect that at body level. We cannot expect security from insecure things. That is why Shankara asks us to temper the value we place on these frills of life. This is not to say that we must shun wealth and fame, but we must derive our sense of value, or to say the purpose of life, from something deeper and more permanent. We must find our worth from pursuing our goal of PHS, peace, happiness, and security, which are gained through Shravana, Manana, Nidhi Dhyasanam, leading to the Chitta Shuddhi, to Gnana Yogyata, and culminating in Gnana Nishta. In the final analysis, wealth and fame are toys to be enjoyed, and there must always be the vision of that something beyond, and that something permanent, and that one thing that never leaves us, that Atman or divinity within. Be in the world, but not of it. Remember at every step of life's unfolding that it's mere role playing, not taking the role seriously, but enacting it sincerely. Life's path is a process of undoing all the delusion and undo all the conditioning that creeps in order to realize the self, the ultimate purpose of human life. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati. From now on, you get a lot of very real and painful life situations about aging and so on. And this is the reality of life. Let us listen to Apeksha for another similar verse. Go ahead.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Yavat pavnau nivstati dehe, tavat pishati kushalam gehe, gatvati vayo deha paye, bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye. So like Sarah said, now onwards, it is a very, very direct, hard-hitting statements that are going to come. Very true, Sarah said. Till now, Shankaracharya has been talking about wealth, name, and fame. But in this verse, he will talk about the love for the body and how foolish we are, how deluded we are that we love our body so much. And before I start explaining the verse, Shankaracharya, in this, he has clearly written that we run after the body. We spend our whole life dedicating the entire life for the welfare of our body. We look after the feeding, clothes, wealth, name, and fame. But when you see, when one is alive, his family members will come and kindly inquire about your welfare. But when your soul departs, and this is where he says the hard-hitting line, when your soul departs from the body, even your wife will run away in fear of the corpse. That is the direct meaning of this verse. And many people actually get disturbed by reading Bhaj Govindam because Shankaracharya has told these direct, bitter truths. It's like a doctor who is not afraid to give bitter medicine to the patient to cure the disease. But here, Shankaracharya's sole objective that we have to keep in mind is to cure our disease. And what is the disease that we have? The delusion. And that's why the first word that Bhaj Govindam starts with is, in the first line, "O deluded one." It starts like that. So Shankaracharya, what does he mean is that if you look at the body, it does not have any intrinsic worth of its own. As long as we are alive, people will come, our family members will inquire about us, the body will be worth millions and millions of rupees. But as soon as the life principle goes away from the body, you know, the body becomes totally worthless. So much so that when in a house, even if a dead body is kept and a person enters that house, they have to take a bath. And we start referring to the body as it. Let's take it to the corpse place. Let's take it there. Let's take this there. So the name of the person is also forgotten. So Shankaracharya clearly says here that this over attachment is a delusion. Even the wife and the closest family members, your parents, everyone who wanted to be with you when the life was there, will be afraid of this dead body after the life principle goes away. And that is the hard-hitting fact. But that does not mean, Shankaracharya is not saying that we should be neglecting the body and we should not be loving our body. What he says here is that we should be using this body to attain the highest wisdom, to the highest potential that we have, to become close to the real one, never changing principle that is within us. That is the Atman, love for our Atma, or Atma Ananda. So you should get the wisdom out of this life using this body as a tool and treat it like a disposable cup. When the time comes, you are able to throw it away with happiness, with joy and cheerfulness. Hari Om.
Thank you. Thanks, Apeksha. We continue the study of the Bhaja Govindam, and that will be verse 7, Dr. Sheila. Dr. Sheila, are you there?
Sheila was there, sir. She was speaking.
We will proceed to Dr. Radha and then come back to her.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Radha?
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Audible?
Clear. Very clear.
Okay. Okay.
Hello,
good
sir.
evening.
Sorry.
Sheila has come.
Now is it okay, sir? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Radha. Thank you. Namaste, Hari Om. Sir, Balastavat Krida Saktaha, Tarunastavat Taruni Saktaha, Ruddhastavat Chinta Saktaha, Parame Brahmani Kopina Saktaha. Now all my friends have been talking. We have been hammering about the delusion. Now further, I'm going to, through this verse, some more hammering is going to go on. Shankaracharya is dealing with the delusions of human beings at various levels. He is on delusion removing project. Here he has pointed out one of the biggest delusion that people have. That is, childhood is spent in play and in games. Youth is spent in play, named love, attraction to opposite sex. Old age is spent in worries, and the whole life is wasted like this. The divine is never remembered. Parame, higher. Brahmani, God. Kopina Saktaha. We go on postponing till tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. There is a very big misconception that the initial half or 3/4 of the life should be dedicated to only material pursuit, that is job, family, possessions, etc. And spirituality comes only in old age. This is the biggest delusion. This creates two problems. One is we do not know how long we are going to live. The second one is if a person has immersed totally in materialism and suddenly after retirement wants to change to spirituality, a sudden transformation is impossible. That's what Swamiji says. When the person is soaked in materialism for many years, the materialistic vasanas are so strongly imprinted that it will take years to get back into spirituality. So Swamiji says, in initial stages, many are busy in earning, raising a family, which also are important, but still one must give few percentage of time for spiritual pursuits like satsangas, exposure to Shastric teachings. So as age advances, there is a smooth transition from one channel to another. Now, after listening to Sir's talk on Osho, I got inspired and I just went to some of his teachings. Here, Osho says, if you are too infatuated by life, you cannot recognize the divine. Just think what you're doing, what you're involved with, what is the result of your actions. Your actions, your money, your reputation will be of no use in the end. How can you recognize the formless if you are obsessed with the form? You cannot understand the formless with a materialistic attitude. If you're looking at the earth all the time, how can you see the sky? All the temptations of happiness end up in misery. All hopes of happiness end up in misery. So you remain empty-handed. Even if you want to go from here fulfilled, the sooner you wake up, the better it is. Then the sooner you remember the divine, the better it is. You should spend as much as time and effort as possible in his remembrance. That is virtuous. That's the only thing which can fulfill you. He says Shankara has written commentaries on Brahma Sutra, Upanishads, and the Gita. They are very complex. It is all words, scriptures, logics, analysis, and thinking. But we find his innermost feelings expressed in these small, simple, direct verses of Bhajagovinda. The path of Shankara's realization is through the heart and not through the head. So he says, Muda, remember that word God is not godliness, just as the word water is not water. When one is thirsty, the word water is of no use, and actual water is needed to quench the thirst. So he says, so sing the song of divine Bhajagovindam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sheila. It is so nice that in our own study group, we have many younger people very active in work life, but very deeply involved in spiritual studies too. Radha, the last.
Yes, sir. Yes. Bhajagovindam is classified as a Prakarana Grantha, which means it is like a primer. Whenever we do painting work in a house, we first put the primer so that it can hold on many more coats of the paintings and other stuff. So if we are clear with Bhajagovindam, whether it is for a starter or even for an advanced student, the foundation is strong, and this is so simple and direct. Just like Sheila just now mentioned, we just keep in the web of words all the while. It is not going to serve any purpose. Like a person who is thirsty cannot be satiated just by saying water. He has to have the water to drink. And the key word that is there in this Bhajagovindam is moha. Like Rama madam very beautifully explained about moha and Bhajagovindam and all in the initial verses. Moha is what? Attachment to the world, delusion. And this delusion causes two kinds of sickness. One is shoka, that is suffering, and another one is bhaya, that means fear. We are always afraid. We are always in the suffering that we will lose something. Something might happen to our relations, positions, and these kind of worries are always eating us away and eating our time also, precious time. So what is the right way of removing this suffering and bhaya or this delusion is jnana, the right knowledge about things. Though it may look like Shankaracharya is directly attacking on the wife, children, your body and your wealth and your possessions and all. But slightly I thought let us look at it in a different perspective when this verse has come. Kate kanta kaste putra samsaro yamativa vichitra kasya tvam kahakuta ayata statvam chintaya tadiha brata. Saying, oh brother, is so loving. The entire Bhajagovindam is born out of compassion, the Jagat Guru's compassion towards the deluded world. So there is so much of compassion when he addresses you. Earlier he addressed you as Muda, even that is out of love and compassion for us. Here his address has changed to Bhrata, oh dear brother. He says, please ponder over whom you are, where have you come from, who is this wife and who is this son. So these are the questions that he has left for us to ponder over. Now our scriptures describe a relationship between, since he was addressing a man, he kept on talking about wife and things like that. It could be a husband also. It could be a wife and husband, both ways we can take. Just for example, if I go to Atharvana Veda, there are some beautiful passages about explaining how a wife should be and how a husband should be. It says for a husband, he should never keep anything hidden from his wife. Transparency is absolutely a must in any relationship between a husband and wife. And he says wife should get the required respect and should be treated like a precious thing. And she should always, her honor should always be of utmost importance. And then it talks about, I'll just refer to 2 verses because of lack of time. For a wife, it says her duty is to bring spirituality into the family members and always keep God's grace on the house. And it says that whatever money the husband is earning, it is a wife's duty to manage that wealth. So here in any scripture, if you see about how a husband and wife should be, they've beautifully divided. There is a lot of respect, lot of love, lot of transparency, lot of give and take, and nobody is inferior or superior in a relationship like this. But in the world, are all relations between a man and woman like this? No. Because this seems to be like a perfect situation where each one is respecting the other and things like that. So the basis of our civilization, the building block is a family, husband, wife, children and all. So why would Shankaracharya say, what is this wife, what is this child and things like that? That is because one is, we have come through many lifetimes. So in this life, whatever relations we have may not continue with us in the next life. That is one way of looking at it, because these are all temporary positions that we have. Another way of looking at it is when scriptures have so beautifully described about relationships, like if I may quote Khalil Gibran, he says, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. And it goes on like this. Such a beautiful way of looking at children. But do we look at our spouses and children in an ideal situation like this? No. We have a lot of expectations from our spouses to be in a certain way. We have a lot of dreams to be fulfilled through our children. The Shastra says when your child becomes 16 years of age, you have to consider them like your own friends. But are we able to do that in the real world? In the real world, in all the relationships we have an agenda, we have an attachment, we have an expectation. And because these things are not fulfilled, there is a suffering, there is a shoka, and there is a bhaya that people might leave us, ditch us, go away, and so many things. So most of our relationships are of this nature. But if we learn to love our relations unconditionally, like somebody was mentioning, I don't remember who that was, that I think it was Jyoti was telling so beautifully that these relations are gifts to us given by God. And when and at what time they can be taken away from us, we have no idea. So as long as they are with us, can we give them unconditional love without any agenda? And when the time comes to part with them, can we do it gracefully and give it back to the God? If this is our orientation, or this is our paradigm towards relationships, then we can also have a beautiful relationship with the people in the world. And bhaja also means bhakti. Bhakti is towards the Lord, and all our relations, we have to treasure them like a precious gift from God, because He has given us. And continue, Bhaja Govindam is nothing but continue doing all the things in the world the way you should do them. But in the mind, be engaged with the God all the time. Here, if I may give a small example from Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, he would always say, just like a mother holds an infant in her arm, in one arm, and with the other arm, she is doing all the work in the house. But one arm is holding on to the child. And when she finishes the work in the house, her both arms are free to play and love the child. Similarly, if with one hand we are doing all the work in the world the way we should do, perfectly and unconditionally loving and respecting them, and in the other hand, a part of our mind is continuously engaged with Govinda, this would be an ideal situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radha. This is Moha Mudgar trying to hammer us, trying to make us shift from Vyabhara to Paramarthika, asking the primary question, who are you? Are you this body mind, or are you the embodied? Of course, this is a beautiful song also. If Venkatesh Prasad or Radha would like to sing the chorus song, Bhaja Govindam, and we will conclude our presentation with that. Anyone?
Radhaji?
Yeah. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Samprapte sannihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati drukum karane, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudhamate.
Thank you
very much. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Sir, there is a question, sir.